Men are a problem. You're 90% of the crime. You're 90% of the murder. You're 90% of the abuse. You can't be 90% of all the problems and think that it's 90% women. That round table was so interesting with all of those black men. And I hope you guys go and watch the entire thing. I did see the clips, but I watched the entire video on YouTube. And it's so many different things that I want to say, but I want to kind of keep it close, okay? So I wrote down 3 things that I took away from that video. Number 1, arrested development. Okay, I also call it Peter Pan syndrome. And if you've been following me, then you know I've been talking about it for a very long time, because there are men that you talk to, Clifton, aka Pinky, whatever you want to call him, okay? He is the prime example of what I am saying when I say you can have a conversation with a man in his 60s and 70s, and it is no different than you talking to an underdeveloped man in his 20s. Arrested development. He's stuck somewhere and he can't get out of it. He couldn't even maintain his composure to have a conversation with other men. Anger, right? You saw how angry he got. He was flustered. It was like a child throwing a tantrum, and the way his bravado and his energy and raising his voice and nigga this and yeah, I mean, oh my God. Imagine a woman being on the receiving end of that, because trust you me, this queen that he kept referring to, she's had to deal with that numerous times. So when you start talking about black men not being in the household, it's usually that man that's not in the household. It's usually that man that was asked to leave so that she can get $40 from the government, because she'd rather have $40 than him being in there beating her down. Third thing, accountability, right? So let me talk about what I really love, because I didn't know the large majority of the men who were in that conversation, but thank you. Thank you. Whoever selected that panel did an extremely good job at finding some of the most emotionally intelligent and intellectually strong men that I've heard from in a long time, right? And I mean, every single person on that panel, from the gay man, the transgender, just your Afrocentric man, your business person, like they had every gamut of man on there from what I could see. And then old school. I have said repeatedly throughout the years that the reason that the black community is suffering is not from the young generation. When they say this generation don't know, who were they going to learn from? Him? Clifton? Think about Clifton being the man that you had to look up to. Single mothers, which is a term that I really despise. However, a mother is a mother in my opinion. But single mothers can raise their children however they want to raise them. But when you are dealing with boys, the minute he goes outside, no matter what you have taught him inside, I am a mother of 2 boys and grandsons. No matter what you have taught him, the minute he gets that influence from another male outside of home, the big homie, right, in the game, the coach at his school, the passer, right, the minute he gets in touch with another male outside of his father's influence, that male will have more influence over that boy than 80 years of his mother trying to pour into him. Trust me, I know. So they throw the responsibility to women, but the truth of the matter is that the pimping, the gang banging, the drug dealing, the drug using, it's almost never an extension of the mother, and it's almost always an extension of the community. And the sooner we start putting the focus where it needs to be and not outside of that, but we won't even talk about the fathers being absent. That's a moot point, right? We already know that's the case, right? That's why he is outside. For the most part, there are some boys who go outside, they live in a perfectly solid home, both parents there, and they still go outside. I don't think we give enough credit to the influence of the environment. I don't think that we give enough credit to the influence of the music. Look at how the music shifted, right? From my era of, candy girl, and then, bitches ain't shit but hoes and tricks, right? So we had a transition, and during that transition, a lot of black men got caught in the rapture. They got caught. It wasn't single motherhood. I think that if you listen to a prayer over and over again, you pray every single day, right? And God, and you reading and you invested in your spirituality, you are going to be a more solid person spiritually. Will we all agree? Absolutely. So what makes you think that if you listen to, smoking on tuka and killing and murder and mayhem, and what do you think the outcome of that is going to be? not only do you listen to that day in and day out and programming your mind for destruction, but when you're done listening to that, you go outside and you run into Big Homie, and Big Homie say, hey, I want you to hold this pack for me, and we're gonna get some money. And then you live in a society that's based on what you have and who you show up to be. And what do you think that's going to transform you into? Exactly, an animal, right? Every song is about how you disrespect women. Every song is how you don't have to be accountable for anything because it's either the government or a black woman, and you've done nothing wrong, just existed. And in your just being here, the world doesn't want you to win. But then you see black women striving. You see black women in that video. The one constant thing that I could say from the old heads to the young heads was the woman is the great equalizer. And not all women are equal. We understand that. But the woman is a great equalizer, and there is no man on this earth that can say that he's never had a great woman. And what most men would say, if they're being honest, is that they had that woman and they misused her and had to let her go, or she left and would not never return. Right? So he talked about going to therapy. That's fine. But if you're going to therapy with a bunch of lies and a lack of self-awareness, you're going to come out the same way you went in, baby. So back to the Arrested Development. So like I said, even if you look at the comment section of my page where supposedly the men who follow me are so intellectual, but the large majority of them even would not even say out loud what it is. Men are a problem. You're 90% of the crime. You're 90% of the murder. You're 90% of the abuse. You can't be 90% of all the problems and think that it's 90% women. Think about it. Slow down and just think about it. How are you 90% of every problem that exists in society as a whole? And then you want the tools and views of the women to be, and then you call yourself a leader. You want the tools and views of women to take on the responsibility. That's back to the lack of accountability that I was discussing earlier. So in addition to your Arrested Development, lack of growth, in addition to your accountability, then you're angry. You're angry at everybody but yourself. You have no discipline. You have no accountability. You're angry. And on top of that, your growth is stunted because you still want to be a hot nigga when you 60 years old and 70 years old. I'm telling you, in my inbox, when I be making those jokes about old men sitting on my inbox, I really be serious because I am astonished at how many of these crypt keepers are in my inbox still like hunting for sex at 60 and 70 and older. So you are clearly the problem because I don't see older women doing that. I see older women operating in a completely different space. Even when, like, I won't say, but even when I talk to younger women, you know what their biggest issue is when they're at work? Their biggest issues when they're at work is older men trying to have sex with them, demoting them, and causing havoc at their workplace because they won't adhere to their rules. Imagine these type of men, you're being forced to live in a home with them. So when you say Section 8 put you out the home, thank God. Thank God that they gave women an alternative to being beat, abused, sexually assaulted, verbally abused. And I mean, look at Clifton's behavior. That was the man who was in the home. That was the man that women had to escape from. And I appreciate this conversation because I appreciate seeing so many younger black men really standing up for women as a whole. You know, women, we have our own issue, right? Women, we have our own issue, and that's fine.